They promised freedom, they promised wealth, and they promised to take power away from Wall Street and hand it back to the people. But in the end, it was another story of greed, lies, and betrayal. The crypto world has been rocked once again, this time by the stunning downfall of Alex Mashinsky, the once celebrated co-founder and CEO of Celsius Network, who was just sentenced to 12 years in prison for orchestrating one of the largest frauds in the history of digital finance. This case isn't just about one man or one company. It's about the illusion of trust in an industry built on disruption, the thin line between innovation and deception, and the painful reminder that even in the future of money, old-school scams still thrive. But how did Celsius go from being the darling of decentralized finance to a collapsed empire that wiped out billions in customer funds? And what does Mashinsky's conviction mean for the future of crypto as governments tighten their grip? Let's dive into the rise, the fraud, the fallout, and the haunting question of whether this is the end of crypto's dream or simply another painful chapter in its growing pains. To understand the controversy, you need to rewind back to 2017, when Mashinsky, a flashy entrepreneur with a knack for selling grand visions, launched Celsius Network. The pitch was seductive. A platform where ordinary investors could deposit their crypto, earn sky-high interest rates, sometimes over 18%, and borrow against their assets without the red tape of traditional banks. Celsius branded itself as a champion of the people, with Mashinsky claiming he was building a fairer, transparent alternative to a financial system rigged in favor of the rich. And at first, the dream caught fire. By 2021, Celsius boasted over 1.7 million users and managed nearly $30 billion in assets. Crypto investors saw Mashinsky as a Robin Hood of blockchain, someone finally putting the little guy first. But behind the scenes, the numbers didn't add up, and the promises were far too good to be true. The prosecution's case against Mashinsky revealed a chilling truth: Celsius was never the safe haven it claimed to be. Instead, it was a house of cards built on manipulation, lies, and reckless gambles. Customers were told their funds were safe, but in reality, Mashinsky and his team were secretly making risky trades, funneling money into speculative investments, and even using new customer deposits to cover holes in the balance sheet. An age-old Ponzi-like strategy dressed up in modern crypto language. When the crypto markets crashed in 2022, Celsius could no longer hide the truth. Withdrawals were frozen, panic spread like wildfire, and billions in customer funds evaporated almost overnight. Families lost their life savings, small investors were ruined, and the company filed for bankruptcy, sending shockwaves across the entire industry. For many, it was the moment they realized the dream of decentralized finance could just as easily become a nightmare. But Mashinsky wasn't just a passive leader caught in a storm. He was actively fueling the deception. Court documents revealed that he repeatedly lied to customers and investors, painting Celsius as stable and profitable, while privately acknowledging the financial black hole it had become. He misled regulators, cherry-picked data to make Celsius look healthier than it was, and encouraged customers to hodl, hold on to their crypto, while he quietly cashed out millions for himself. At one point, prosecutors argued, he even approved deceptive marketing campaigns designed to lure more deposits from unsuspecting investors. The strategy worked for a while, but like all frauds, the truth eventually surfaced, and Mashinsky's empire came crashing down. The sentencing 12 long years in federal prison marks one of the harshest punishments yet for a crypto executive, and it sends a loud message. Fraud, no matter how it's dressed up, will face consequences. In court, Mashinsky tried to argue for leniency, portraying himself as a visionary who simply made mistakes in a volatile market. But the judge wasn't buying it. Instead, prosecutors emphasized the scale of the damage: billions lost, trust in crypto shattered, and countless ordinary people financially destroyed. Victims told stories of being misled into believing Celsius was safer than a bank, only to watch their futures disintegrate. The human toll was undeniable, and Mashinsky's fate was sealed. Now here's where the controversy deepens, because while Mashinsky has been sentenced, questions remain about who else should be held accountable. Was Celsius a lone bad actor, or was it simply a symptom of a much larger problem within the crypto industry? Some argue that Celsius was just the tip of the iceberg, pointing to other high-profile collapses like Terra Luna, Voyager, and the infamous implosion of FTX. Each of these cases followed a similar playbook: flashy marketing, promises of guaranteed returns, risky financial practices, and ultimately catastrophic losses when the hype could no longer sustain reality. Mashinsky's conviction, then, isn't just about punishing one man. It's a wake-up call to an entire industry that has thrived on the blurred lines between innovation and fraud. The irony of Celsius's story is that it was built on the very principles it betrayed. The company promised transparency, yet it hid its true financial condition. It promised fairness, yet it enriched its executives while destroying ordinary investors. It promised decentralization, yet it relied on centralized control that made it vulnerable to abuse. In many ways, Mashinsky's downfall mirrors the very Wall Street corruption he once claimed to oppose. And for critics of crypto, this case is proof that the industry is less about empowerment and more about exploiting the dreams of everyday people. But here's where we have to ask, does Mashinsky's sentencing mean crypto is finally being cleaned up? Or is it just another chapter in an endless cycle of hype and collapse? Regulators around the world are watching closely. In the US, the Securities and Exchange Commission and other agencies have stepped up their crackdowns targeting not only fraud, but also the broader lack of accountability in crypto. Some believe that increased oversight will stabilize the industry, making it safer for investors. Others argue that regulation will suffocate innovation, driving crypto back into the shadows. What's clear, however, is that the Wild West era of "trust us, bro" promises is coming to an end. Mashinsky's 12-year sentence is a warning shot to every other crypto CEO who thinks they can play fast and loose with customer funds. Still, the story isn't over. Mashinsky's legal team has already signaled plans to appeal, claiming that the prosecution exaggerated Celsius's failures and unfairly made Mashinsky a scapegoat for an entire industry's problems. If the appeal goes forward, it could reignite debates over whether Mashinsky's punishment fits the crime, or whether he's being used as an example to scare off other would-be crypto fraudsters. Meanwhile, Celsius's bankruptcy proceedings continue, with victims still fighting to recover at least a fraction of their lost assets. The road to restitution is long, and for many the damage can never be undone. And here's the haunting part. Despite all the scandals, all the collapses, and all the fraud, crypto is far from dead. In fact, interest in digital assets is resurging, with Bitcoin and Ethereum bouncing back in price and new investors entering the market every day. The dream of decentralized finance hasn't disappeared, it's simply been scarred. Some even argue that scandals like Celsius and FTX will ultimately strengthen the industry, forcing out bad actors and paving the way for more responsible innovation. But for the countless victims of Mashinsky's scheme, those words bring little comfort. Trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. So where does this leave us? On one hand, Mashinsky's 12-year sentence represents progress, a long overdue reckoning that shows fraudsters can't hide behind blockchain buzzwords forever. On the other hand, it exposes just how fragile the crypto dream remains, constantly teetering between revolution and ruin. If crypto is to survive, it must confront its darkest truths: the addiction to hype, the lack of transparency, and the vulnerability of ordinary people who place their faith in promises too good to be true. Alex Mashinsky may be behind bars, but the shadow of his actions will linger over the industry for years to come. As the dust settles, one question echoes louder than ever: can crypto truly be the future of finance, or will it forever be haunted by its scandals? For now, investors must tread carefully, regulators must stay vigilant, and the industry must decide whether it wants to be a force for empowerment or just another stage for greed. Because if the Celsius saga has taught us anything, it's this: when money, technology, and human ambition collide, the fallout can be devastating. And if you thought this was the last controversy in crypto, you're dead wrong. More scandals, more fraud, and more reckonings are waiting just around the corner. So stay tuned because this storm isn't over yet.